So as mentioned, I've been involved in sleep medicine for a while. I'm a sleep specialist. I was at University of California, Los Angeles, currently as the chief medical officer of a company, Sanusam, working on trying to get better sleep through treatment of sleep disorder breathing. Really been a lifelong passion of mine to help people sleep better and cause better health through better sleep. So the topic today is snoring, sleep disorder breathing, and cardiovascular health. We've all seen snoring, right? We've all have family members, friends. We've seen people snoring around us at all times. So we know what the picture looks like of snoring, right? Somebody sitting there, their mouth is open, making sounds. Maybe this is a better picture where this is really demonstrating the impact on the family members, the bed partner of having snoring being disruptive to not only the individual's sleep, but the other people around them as well. Or maybe this is a better picture still, where this bed partner is very frustrated with their family members snoring. But what we don't always think about is snoring might lead to pictures such as these, where there's actually an issue with the heart in relation to this snoring. So we're going to explore that today. So some key overview and points. So snoring is essentially the vibration of tissue as air moves across it during sleep. It is really the result of some restriction and lack of the ability for air to move freely over the tissue while we're sleeping. As many people think it is harmless or maybe just a little disruptive. However, it's really a sign that air is not moving the way it should during sleep. And it really can be a symptom of a more serious problem of sleep disordered breathing, in particular obstructive sleep apnea, which is a major health problem that we're just starting to learn more and more about in terms of how it affects brain health, cognitive function, cardiovascular health, and really a lot of other health conditions. And snoring also then might be linked to these conditions as well, due to either its relationship with sleep apnea or maybe even on its own. So what's going on with snoring, really? This is a picture of the upper airway when we sleep, so the nose and the mouth. Anytime we sleep, our muscles all relax normally. If the muscles of the throat and the nasal passageway and the palate are relaxing during sleep too much and there's not enough room for air to go through, that causes the sound of snoring. This is an important concept to understand as we look through the things that worsen snoring and also look at ways to treat snoring, is understanding this phenomenon, that basically it's a limited space with air moving across it during sleep that's causing the symptom of snoring. In addition, if there's any nasal issues, so congestion or anything else that's restricting airflow from the nose, that also can contribute. And when we sleep, our muscles relax, but also fluids shift a little bit more into the nasal passageway as well. So that's why we might be able to breathe fine when we're awake, but when we're asleep and these muscles are all relaxing, that's when we see snoring and some of the effects of snoring and sleep disorder breathing. Snoring is very, very common. So estimates up to 40% of men snore and 20% of women snore. There was a 2023 snoring and sleep report from the US, Australia, and the UK. 57% of people surveyed were reported to be affected by snoring. 18% admitted to snoring themselves. 19% admitted to snoring and accused their bed partner of snoring as well. And about 20% of people reported not to have snored, but that their bed partner did. So snoring is something that really does affect most of us. The survey also showed that snoring was more common with age. So ages 55 to 64, about 77% of those people snored, compared to about 40% in the younger group. They did a study on the Malaysian population looking at snoring. It was a pretty well-run cross-sectional survey of the community, ages 30 to 70. And what it showed, it was a sample of 1,611 adults. It showed that snoring was present in almost half of the population there. And then interestingly, they also checked for parameters related to obstructive sleep apnea, and it was estimated that about 7% of the Malaysian population sampled had clinical suspicion for obstructive sleep apnea, which we'll talk a little bit more about briefly what that means. So factors that can worsen snoring, we're going back to that initial first picture that described the upper airway. It's really anything that further narrows this airway and restricts airflow during sleep. So nasal issues, if we have congestion due to allergies, due to structural issues with the nasal passageway, due to an infection, that's just going to limit space for air to move through the nasal passageway. Weight plays a lot of role in snoring. You might have had a family member or friend or even yourself notice that when they gained some weight, they started to have snoring. And the reason for that is weight tissue, adipose tissue, builds around the throat, and even the tongue actually holds weight tissue. So as we increase the weight, it compresses the airway further, and there's less room to breathe. So weight plays a major role not only in snoring, but sleep apnea as well. Age plays a role. The older we get, the more relaxable these muscles of the airway get with sleep, which is why the survey earlier showed that as patients got older, they had a higher incidence of snoring. Alcohol plays a role in snoring, and you might have seen, again, a family member or yourself that snores only when they have some alcoholic beverages. And the reason for that is alcohol actually makes the airway relax more during sleep to contribute to snoring. Smoking, we know, is terrible for our health in a lot of different ways, but it's actually very detrimental to sleep, and it can worsen snoring as well. Smoking causes inflammation of the whole upper airway, the nasal passageway, causes more edema of the throat, and this can cause snoring. Anatomic variation can play a role in snoring. So if you have a very narrow airway to begin with, it just takes a little bit of relaxation of those muscles during sleep, and they can obstruct and cause issues with breathing. Sleep position plays a role in snoring. When we sleep on our backs, the tongue tends to fall back more easily with gravity and cause snoring. So you might have noticed somebody that they only snore when they're on their back. They get an elbow to the rib there, they roll over, and they're not snoring as much. And that's due to the positional component of snoring. The stage of sleep affects snoring as well. So deeper stages of sleep, such as REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep, is a very important stage of sleep for cardiovascular health, to feel refreshed, to get good quality sleep. This is a deep stage of sleep where these muscles are extra relaxable during sleep, and because of that, during REM sleep, we have a higher degree of snoring. This is also problematic that if we're pulling ourselves out of these deep stages of sleep due to something like snoring, we're not getting the quality sleep we really need to feel refreshed and to be healthy. Hormones also play a role, believe it or not, in snoring. Estrogen, the female hormone, actually helps maintain the airway during sleep a little bit. So because of this, females have a slightly lower rate of snoring and sleep apnea compared to males. However, after menopause, when estrogen levels drop, many females will start to develop snoring and will even start to develop sleep apnea. Pregnancy can also affect snoring. Pregnancy causes a lot of shifts in fluids in the body and also causes some shift in hormones as well, contributing to snoring. Genetics play a role in snoring. Just the way our muscles relax during sleep is something that has a genetic component, so you'll often see snoring or sleep disorder breathing run in families. And then certain medications can also worsen snoring. So medications that cause more muscle relaxation, or opioid medications for pain, which cause cessation of breathing, these can all worsen snoring. And I mention all this because this is all very important to understand for when we look at how to treat snoring, how to reduce snoring. It's really trying to eliminate or mitigate a lot of these factors. So why is snoring concerning? Is it just something that's noisy and disruptive, as mentioned earlier, or is it a sign that breathing is compromised? And I would argue that it is that, and we'll talk about that in a bit more. Is it a sign of poor lifestyle impacting other conditions of sleep and disease, such as smoking, drinking, not exercising? Or is it a symptom of sleep apnea, which we touched on a little bit, and I'm going to go into further detail. So this is going back to that same study of the population of Malaysia that looked at snoring. As you mentioned, a pretty large study here. They actually found that the people who snored and there was suspicion of obstructive sleep apnea had a high significant association with daytime sleepiness, morning headaches, driving and workplace accidents, high blood pressure or hypertension, and ischemic heart disease. So pretty pronounced there, the effect of snoring and sleep apnea in this population in this study. Snoring is associated with increased risk of many things. So fragmented sleep, as we fall into deep sleep and start to snore and pull out of this sleep, it fragments sleep, impacting sleep quality. This could lead to insomnia. It could lead to daytime sleepiness. When this happens, a lot of stress hormones can be released in the body, which can cause elevated blood pressure or hypertension, atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, dyslipidemia, type 2 diabetes, trouble focusing or cognitive issues. We're even learning that Alzheimer's disease sleep may have a role in causing that. And then motor vehicle work-related accidents, and even things like depression and mood. Sleep is just so important for our bodies and our health that anytime you're doing anything that limits the quality or quantity of your sleep, it can have such a detrimental impact on really the rest of the body. So we talked a little bit about obstructive sleep apnea, and really what that is, and some of the question about all those risks with snoring, is it the snoring that itself that's causing these problems? Or is it that snoring is a sign of obstructive sleep apnea, which we know causes a lot of problems? So in obstructive sleep apnea, the degree of relaxation of these muscles of the upper airway is so significant that it's actually blocking off breathing during sleep, where we actually cannot move any airflow whatsoever. This causes hypoxia or low oxygen. It causes an increased stress on the body, so release of a lot of catecholamines and other stress hormones that really put our body in constant fight or flight. Causes a lot of inflammation, blood vessel dysfunction, metabolic dysregulation, and disturbed sleep. And this has been very well proven in many different studies throughout the world of the impact of obstructive sleep apnea. So sleep apnea, just to sum it up there, it's really a sleep disordered breathing characterized by repetitive episodes of complete or partial upper airway obstruction during sleep. This results in a drop in oxygen, sleep fragmentation, negative interthoracic pressure changes, and stress hormones. And it's estimated to occur in 22% of men and 17% of women. Well documented the health issues, and really some of the question with snoring. Is it snoring itself causing the problem, or is it snoring be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea that's really causing the issue with our health? There's a pretty famous study in the United States called the Sleep Heart Health Study, where they really sampled many different sites over a long period of time, and they looked at cardiovascular function in relation to sleep disordered breathing, in particular obstructive sleep apnea. There was over 5,000 participants over a wide age group, and it showed that 61% of snorers, habitual snorers, had actually obstructive sleep apnea. And also having consistent loud snoring increases the chance of having moderate to severe sleep apnea by 3 to 4 times. And then on a meta-regression analysis, it showed that about 70 to 90% of people with sleep apnea snore. So it's not everybody with sleep apnea that snores, and not everyone that snores has sleep apnea, but as you can see, there's a huge overlap between snoring being really a symptom of obstructive sleep apnea. So some of the danger symptoms to help differentiate, is this just snoring, where there's vibration of the tissue, or is this a sign of obstructive sleep apnea, can be found on this slide here. So if you're having chronic, consistent snoring, very loud snoring, this might be a sign that this is actually sleep apnea and not just benign snoring on its own. If you have gasping or choking during sleep, this is probably something a little more than just snoring. If there's pauses in breathing while asleep, this is probably a sign of obstructive sleep apnea, or could be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea. Waking up at night, feeling unrefreshed when you wake up, or tired during the day, these can also be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea, not just snoring. Morning headaches is actually a very common sign and symptom we see in obstructive sleep apnea, where when these muscles of the upper airway close and we're not getting enough oxygen in, we also cannot get rid of carbon dioxide as easily as well. our bodies take in oxygen, use it, and then convert it to carbon dioxide, which is then expelled. But if this is not able to happen due to the airway being blocked off during sleep, it builds up in the bloodstream, causes dilation of the arteries in the head, and actually can lead to these headaches that people get in the morning. Also, if you have trouble with your blood pressure, either the blood pressure is rising in conjunction with the snoring, or the blood pressure is just being really problematic to control with medications, this could be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea. And then finally, if you have a family history of heart disease and snoring, this might be a sign that there was maybe more to that story and there was actually sleep apnea. So these are all very important danger symptoms of snoring that if you have these along with it, it could be obstructive sleep apnea, and you probably want to see a medical provider to see if this is the case. Typically, they do that with getting a sleep study, which can differentiate just primary snoring from obstructive sleep apnea. However, could there be risks of snoring on its own? So, again, well documented the risk with obstructive sleep apnea, but say it's snoring by itself, can that also have problems? And it looks like maybe it can. So here was a pretty large study that showed snoring intensity to be associated with excessive daytime sleepiness, irrespective of sleep apnea. So they took out the patients with obstructive sleep apnea by giving them a sleep study first, and they looked at the other patients who just snored, and even those patients were more sleepy than they should be. In this study, they also took out obstructive sleep apnea, and there was still an increased risk of high blood pressure, irrespective of sleep apnea in these patients. The paper kind of theoretized that perhaps it was a poor health sign, so these patients were also maybe overweight, maybe drinking more, but it was a little unclear. But definitely there seems to be an association still of snoring and hypertension irrespective of sleep apnea. And then this was a very interesting study that actually showed an increased risk of carotid atherosclerosis. So our carotid blood vessels are in the neck here, they're very important, and it showed a plaques buildup in patients with snoring. And the paper, their interpretation of this was perhaps that there is vibration causing plaque formation from snoring. So it does appear that snoring itself is also not benign, even if it's not related to obstructive sleep apnea. So what do we do about snoring? That's what we all want to know here. And as mentioned earlier, there's a lot of easy things that we can do to help with snoring, thankfully. So first and foremost is maintaining a healthy lifestyle. This is something we should be doing anyway for our health and also our sleep health, but many of these things will actually help with snoring. So if we limit or eliminate alcohol, this will prevent the relaxation of those muscles during sleep. Or if you do like to drink alcohol, not close to bedtime. Avoiding smoking, which again has a lot of bad health implications as is, but also really can contribute to snoring and sleep disorder breathing. Exercising regularly can help with snoring, not only because it helps us lose weight and have less adipose tissue in the airway, but exercising actually moves fluids around the airway and causes the muscle tone to be a little bit better during sleep to reduce both snoring and sleep apnea. And then avoiding sleeping on the back can play a role as well to reduce snoring. So either sleeping on the side, or if you do need to sleep on the back, propping yourself up a bit with pillows, and they make some great pillows out there to help you do this, and this can reduce snoring as well. So these are all pretty easy things that we could do anyway, really for our health, but will actually help with snoring. There's also a lot of medications and procedures that can be used as well for snoring. So particularly if the snoring is from the nasal passageway, there's a lot of medications that we could use to reduce inflammation there, either nasal sprays, antihistamines, which reduce allergies, anticholinergics, which shrink the blood vessels a little bit in the nasal passageway, and then also nasal steroids, which actually can shrink the tissue of the nasal passageway a little bit and reduce snoring. Many of these are over the counter, but also your medical providers can help navigate these as well. There's also many procedures that can be done to prevent snoring. Ear, nose, throat procedures. So if you have enlarged tonsils, a deviated septum, large adenoids, these are things that could potentially be removed and then have an improvement in snoring. These would again be things you talk to your provider about, but a lot of great different things out there to kind of reduce the snoring. There's also a lot of over-the-counter products that can help with snoring. So this is a very cheap products that are basically open the nose up a little bit. Might not help for everybody if you have sleep apnea or have a serious nasal issue, but these are pretty inexpensive things to try, where there's strips on the outside of the nose that pull the nasal passageway open to help with snoring. There's devices that go inside the nose that make a little bit more space, and these are pretty safe to at least try out. They also make different snore guards. These are basically devices that pull that lower airway forward and help it from not falling back as much during sleep. These are interesting. They actually can be effective not only for snoring, but for obstructive sleep apnea in some cases. They make a wide range of different products out there. So some are very cheap, over-the-counter ones. Some are much more expensive that you actually would go to a sleep dentist or a sleep specialist, and they can make a custom mold of your mouth, holds that lower jaw a little bit forward, and can prevent snoring and even obstructive sleep apnea, particularly if it's coming from the throat area. There's some exercises that we can do that may help with snoring as well. So this is from the Sleep Foundation. It's a foundation in the United States that promotes sleep health. They had listed these exercises, which they call myofunctional therapy. Really all they're doing is trying to strengthen the muscles of the airway to cause them to relax a little bit less so during sleep and have a little bit less rate of snoring. So the first one is basically lifting the tongue up to the mouth, kind of doing that repetitively to get that tongue, that hypoglossal muscle stronger. The second one is essentially pursing the lips and then opening the jaw. And again, kind of the idea behind these is you're strengthening the muscles of the upper airway so that they aren't relaxing so much during sleep and you're not having as much snoring. Along the lines of this, and this is, I think, a pretty interesting collection of studies that was done, there's multiple papers out there that show that singing or playing a woodwind instrument will actually help with not only snoring, but obstructive sleep apnea. And the idea is the same thing here. You're strengthening the muscles of the upper airway. So if you like to sing, if you always wanted to play an instrument, this could be a great hobby to get into that may improve not only just snoring, but also obstructive sleep apnea. And you can see here some people enjoying singing. In the middle here, this is actually, there was a couple big studies done on the didgeridoo, which is an Australian instrument that actually they had reduced incidence of sleep apnea playing that. So basically any instrument that is involving blowing air from the throat there, it's going to get these muscles stronger and more fit. So you're almost doing essentially a gym workout for your muscles there that are affecting sleep apnea and snoring. And then last but not least, and I think this is a very important slide overall, is if you are having snoring, if you are having those danger symptoms that I mentioned earlier, it is a really good idea to see a medical provider and make sure that it's not just primary snoring, or make sure it's not sleep apnea and that it is just snoring on its own. And they can really help you to guide you as well on different treatments, help you find the best treatment regimen for your snoring and sleep apnea. And it's not something that you want to miss. Sleep apnea, we know, night after night really puts such a burden on the heart and the cardiovascular system, leads to high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, heart failure. So if you are having issues related to snoring and concerns, it's really important to see a sleep provider to help address that. And they'll do something called a sleep study, which you wear multiple sensors. It measures your breathing. There's some that are done in the lab setting where you go into a facility. Sometimes you could do them at home, and this can help us differentiate snoring from sleep apnea, and it can also see how severe the issue may be. It can tell if the oxygen is going very low with the snoring, with the sleep disorder breathing, or if it's maybe not as concerning there. So this is, I think, very important to kind of think about. And I do want to mention, it's probably a topic beyond this talk today, but there's a lot of treatments for obstructive sleep apnea itself that also will help with snoring. So one of the main treatments we use for obstructive sleep apnea is something called CPAP, or continuous positive airway pressure therapy. It's essentially a little box that sits next to the bed on the nightstand. It takes in room air, pressurizes it, blows it through a tube, through a mask, and it blows enough air in that upper airway to keep it open so that those muscles cannot relax. The air going in the nose prevents that tissue from being too narrow. So CPAP really helps with obstructive sleep apnea and should eliminate snoring as well. So it's a great treatment for both of those conditions. Oral appliance therapy, as mentioned, for snoring also can be effective for certain cases of sleep apnea, particularly more mild cases or cases that are positional, where the sleep apnea is more present on the back. Lifestyle modification is always something great to do for health and for sleep, and also sleep apnea. And there's additional surgical considerations as well for obstructive sleep apnea that we sometimes do as well. So again, very important to discuss this with your provider if there's concern for obstructive sleep apnea. So just kind of running through the highlights then. Snoring may be something much more than just bothersome noise during sleep. It may be linked to obstructive sleep apnea, although not everyone with obstructive sleep apnea snores, and not everyone that snores has obstructive sleep apnea. Snoring and sleep apnea are linked to multiple very serious quality of life and health issues. You want to do your best to maintain a healthy lifestyle, not only for overall health, but also sleep health and then snoring. So exercise, diet, smoking, things that sound very simple, these are very, very important to do. And then get evaluation from a medical provider if there is persistent symptoms of snoring, especially if there's the concerning symptoms of waking up gasping for air at night, a lot of daytime sleepiness, or difficult to control blood pressure. It's really important to get this addressed, particularly if it's sleep apnea. Just want to thank you all for your time there. This is a dog that humans have bred to have a very narrow airway, so this dog often is snoring and very sleepy and probably has sleep apnea. So I'd always like to put that in the end of my talk here. But I want to thank you all for having me here and for this really important conversation about snoring and cardiovascular health.
Thank you, Dr. Joshua, for such informative sharing.